Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the University of Maine Cooperative Extension's Using Unusual Maine Vegetables webinar. I'm Lisa Fishman, Nutrition Educational Professional in Aroostook County. Thank you for joining us for our first webinar of 2021. This new series of cooking webinars will occur twice a month, every other Tuesday. These webinars will deliver current research-based recommendations for healthy cooking using some of the great produce from Maine farmers, tips for shopping local, and food projects that will keep you busy and engaged this winter. We will be joined today by my University of Maine food team colleagues, Kate McCarty, Lori Bowen, and Rob Dumas, our guest chef in the University of Maine Dr. Matthew Hyland's pilot plant. The mission of the University of Maine Cooperative Extension is to help Maine people improve their lives through an educational process that uses research-based knowledge focused on issues and needs. Our educational programs include agriculture, horticulture, including master gardeners, 4-H youth development, food safety, and of course, nutrition. And finally, we want to let you know that the University of Maine is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, age, disability, and reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity. Today, we will focus on cooking with what we think are unusual Maine vegetables. We've got lots of great tips and techniques for increasing your use of local vegetables this time of year. But first, some housekeeping. We do have our webinar set up so that you can hear and see us, but we can't hear or see you. We do want to answer your questions, so please ask them as they come up for you during our presentation by using the Q&A feature, which is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thanks again for joining us. And let's get started. Winter at Maine farm stands is a much more subdued time than summer. Gone are the warm weather loving crops like tomatoes, berries, peppers, and corn. Instead, there are storage crops, fruits and vegetables that were harvested months ago now, and those grown under the protective cover of greenhouses. It's very easy to rely on imported vegetables at the grocery store this time of year, but some of the local wintertime vegetables grown in Maine deserve a closer look. We find many people are just not familiar with some of the vegetable varieties available throughout Maine winters and how to best cook them. So we're going to cover ways you can use root vegetables like rutabaga, celeriac, and others like kohlrabi, fennel, and radishes. We'll also discuss the different varieties of greens available in winter, like bok choy, collards, and mustard greens, and a braising mix. Before we get into all that, though, we want to hear from you. So we have a poll. How do you access local Maine foods in the winter? And you can choose farmers markets, farm stands, grocery stores, your own preserved foods, or you could also respond that you don't use local Maine foods in the wintertime. Great, I see the answers coming in. Oh, we've got a competition going on. About 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Great. And I can see that the majority of people go to grocery stores to get their foods this winter time, but we also have a lot of home food preservers out there, a lot of people going to farm stands and farmers market this time of year. Terrific. And I would be also amiss if I didn't mention that there are a lot of folks who don't use locally grown Maine foods in the wintertime simply because they don't necessarily know what's out there. So this is a great place to be for you today as part of this webinar. So let's go to Kate, and she is going to tell us all about the different types of root vegetables beyond the typical potatoes, carrots, and beets.
Thanks, Lisa, and hello, everyone. So yes, we are all familiar with the potatoes, carrots, and beets, which I consider the staple of Maine winter vegetables. These vegetables are great as a side dish, whether they've been roasted or cooked in soups, stews, casseroles, and then of course added to salads. But I'm gonna look past these more common root vegetables to discuss ones that might not get as much love in your meal planning. First, let's discuss how Maine farmers are able to sell vegetables in the wintertime. Root vegetables, which are literally the root of the crop, are grown in the fall and then harvested late in the season before a heavy frost occurs and the ground freezes. Then farmers store these crops in the conditions they need to last as long as possible. Some root vegetables like beets, carrots, and parsnips like it cool with high humidity, which helps to keep them from becoming limp and shriveled. So farmers store these vegetables in cold storage with added humidity. So the vegetables that you're purchasing today were actually grown in November and have been held in storage ever since. And that's pretty cool. So let's discuss some ways to use root vegetables that you might be skipping over because of a lack of knowledge about their taste or ways to prepare them. So first up, rutabaga. Rutabaga is a large, yellow-fleshed, starchy vegetable that's high in vitamin C and is a good source of potassium and fiber. They're actually related to turnips, which I also have here, as part of the brassica family, and they have a sweet flavor with a slightly bitter edge. The most common way you'll see rutabagas recommended to be served is as a mash, either on its own or mixed in with potatoes. And of course, they can also be cubed and roasted with other root vegetables for wintertime medley. But whatever you choose, rutabagas need to be peeled because it has a naturally occurring waxy coating, and then some grocers will apply food grade wax for extra protection. So this is the one I got locally, that was grown locally. And then I went to the grocery store and bought one that was grown somewhere else in the country. And you can see how much bigger it is, but also it has a really distinct waxy coating on it, which is this, you can see just the wax kind of like flaking off of it. So it has a considerable amount of wax compared to one that's been grown locally. So you will definitely know to peel that before you serve it. Next up is celeriac. So as the name implies, celeriac is part of the celery family. It is not, however, just the root of the celery plant. It is its own plant variety. So this knobby vegetable has a strong celery-like flavor, and it's great roasted in soups, mashed, and as a gratin. My favorite use, though, is in a creamy, smooth soup and then topped with some fried pancetta or croutons for a nice crunch. And again, be sure to wash and peel celeriac thoroughly because its textured surface can often hide pockets of dirt. And then I have some sunchokes. So sunchokes are also known as Jerusalem artichokes. They are another wintertime root vegetable. So these small tubers grow underground and have a flavor that's like potato, but with the crunch of a jicama or water chestnut. These are kind of soggy, so I don't know how crunchy they're gonna be if we eat them raw. They're great, again, as a creamy soup, roasted or fried in a hash. Sunchokes don't need to be peeled before they're eaten because the skin is very thin. But as a word of caution, they are very high in inulin, which can cause gas during digestion. So start with a small amount of them to see if they bother your stomach. And then last up, kohlrabi, which unfortunately I don't have. I went to 3 stores to try and find one. Of course, the local farm stands have it, but the markets that I went to do not. But this is the one that you might see that people often compare to a UFO. I did pick it as the graphic for our webinar today because I think it is one of the weirdest looking vegetables. But somebody once told me that it's like broccoli stems. And once I heard that, it really made much more sense to me as to how to eat and prepare it. So it can be roasted like all the other wintertime vegetables, but it's also tasty raw. Shave it really thinly or cut it into matchsticks. And its pleasant crunch often reminds me of radishes and turnips, which are also great in winter salads. And Rob is going to cover in more detail how to use vegetables like these in salads. So all these root vegetables like to be stored in the same way, to put them in a plastic bag in your refrigerator. So the plastic will help to keep the moisture from escaping, which is what makes the vegetable shrivel up. And then in these conditions, you'll be able to store your vegetables and be able to use them within a few months for best quality. So now we are going to go to Rob to learn about all things radish.
All right, good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us today to learn about cooking with unusual Maine vegetables. So thank you very much, Kate, for the lead in. I'm excited to talk to you folks today about interesting radishes and some other root vegetables. And we're gonna prepare a real quick salad today. That's a shaved radish, carrot, and beet salad. And we're gonna do a nice citrus vinaigrette with that. So I've got a few ingredients laid out here to kind of highlight some of the interesting vegetables that you can find at your local markets. I bought all of these locally in Belfast, and so there really is an incredibly colorful and interesting variety of vegetables out there. So we're going to work today with a watermelon radish, which you can see has a beautiful pinkish purple interior. We have a black Spanish radish, which is one of the radishes you don't want to peel because you want to maintain that contrast between the black outer skin and the creamy white interior. We have a beautiful daikon radish, really common in Korean cooking for things like kimchi. We have a purple daikon radish, which I think is just one of the most beautiful radishes you could ever hope for. One of the radishes I wasn't able to find, but I also love, is called a green lubo, and it's similar to the purple daikon, but it's got a green, lime green color that's just gorgeous. We also have a Chioggia guardsmark beet, which some people call candy stripe beets or candy cane beets. Really delicious and lovely. We have a gold beet here, and we have a classic purple beet. We've got 4 different colors of carrots here. We have purples, we have oranges, we have reds, we have yellows. There are also, white carrots and other subtler variations in color. There are purple ones that have a white core and purple ones that have a striped core, but the world of carrots is really pretty exciting. And then not a Maine thing, but something else that's very good in the wintertime is citrus. So we're getting a lot of good citrus out of the southern United States right now. So there's clementines, mandarins, cara oranges, navel oranges, but a pretty wide variety of yummy oranges to eat. So let's dive into this, this shaved root vegetable salad. So we are going to take a tool here called a mandolin. Now, a mandolin is a fear-inspiring tool, and for a good reason. It can be a very dangerous tool, and it can definitely cause some injuries to your finger. The way that a mandolin works is it has a fixed blade, but an adjustable plane. And you adjust that plane by adjusting the knob on the bottom up or down to increase or decrease the thickness of the slice that you're making. Now we're gonna go for pretty thin here. So I have it set to just barely open. And this is a great tool for working with a mandolin. This is called a cut glove. A cut glove is a cut resistant material. You can put it on your hand. You still maintain pretty decent dexterity while wearing a cut glove. And we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take a few slices off of these radishes, right? We're looking again for something very nice and thin. So we're just gonna very quickly do 2 or 3 slices off of each radish here. And I've already sliced my carrots. And the reason I already sliced the carrots is they really benefit from a quick soak in some ice water. And when you soak them in ice water, it makes them curl and get very crispy. And it's really a lovely texture in the salad too, where you have the carrot as your crunchiest element. It's really quite neat. Grab a couple slices of this watermelon radish, and then we'll start building our salad. So we have those sliced up. I'm gonna set my tray to the side here so I can go ahead and make a little bit of a citrus vinaigrette to go with the salad. So I'm gonna take this cut glove off as well. One trick for cut gloves is you can wear a food safe glove over your cut glove if you'd like, and that can help keep your cut glove a little bit cleaner. But for today, where I'm just doing one thing really quick, we won't worry too much about it. So for this salad, I'm gonna take this orange, split it. It's a lovely burgundy orange, cara. We're gonna squeeze it into the bowl here. So we're looking for about a half a cup or about a half of an orange juice juiced into the bowl. Okay, and then I've got my compost right here beneath. Okay, then we're gonna go in with a little bit of Dijon mustard. We're looking for about a teaspoon of that. I've already got some honey in this bowl. I've got a little bit of lemon juice right here. We're gonna go in with a pinch of salt and a pinch of pepper. And then we are gonna stream in 2 different oils. I'm gonna use a little bit of vegetable oil to get our emulsion started. With vinaigrettes fall into the class of a temporary emulsion. And in this case, we're using an emulsifier that's mustard and honey. And by streaming in the oil gently, we're going to suspend this oil throughout the dressing, and we're going to end up with a creamy emulsion. But because it's only a temporary emulsion, it won't stay emulsified forever. It will need to be re-emulsified from time to time. So if I was to add an egg yolk into this, I would end up with an emulsion that was permanent or a stable emulsion. In addition to the vegetable oil, I'm going to go in with some olive oil for flavor and nutrition. But sometimes olive oil can add some bitter, grassy notes. And so we don't want that to dominate our dressing. So let me just set that aside. We'll give this a little taste. Yum. Very good. So what we'll do now, go ahead and pull down a plate to plate on and a bowl to mix our salad. So we'll take our radishes, beets, and carrots, and we'll go into this bowl. We're going to dress that lightly with a little bit of our dressing here. Okay, so we'll give that a nice little dress and coat. Then we're going to go onto our salad plate with these ingredients, and then we're going to garnish them with our remaining garnish ingredients. So you can see it's just a beautiful combination of colors and textures, the crispy carrot, the soft radish, the earthy beet, right? Really a lovely salad. I would say even if you weren't a fan of these vegetables, it might be pretty enough for you to ultimately give it a try. Okay, so we're in with our lovely carrots, radishes, and beets. Okay, now we're going to garnish with a little bit of toasted almond, a little bit of raisin, add a little bit more sweetness. I've got a nice bunch of cilantro here, and we're just going to pick a little bit of this freshly washed cilantro here. We're going to pick a few leaves off just kind of as a garnish. This is kind of like an alternative salad, you know, a salad that contains no lettuce, right? And then lastly, we're going to do some really nice little segments of clementine. And this is kind of a neat way to cut and present a clementine that I'll show you. It gives you a unique visual appearance. So we'll take this clementine, we'll quickly peel it because they're very easy to peel. And then once we have this peeled, clear that out of the way. And we'll go ahead and take our knife and we'll cut off the end of it. And then we'll cut it into some thin rounds so that you get this really cool, looks kind of like a little flower that you're putting on the plate. And we'll put a couple of these lovely little clementine rounds on the plate. And that is our shaved beet radish salad with a citrus vinaigrette. So I'll be back in a little while to cook another salad for you folks featuring fennel.
Thanks, Rob. That looks so good. And of course, we'll be sharing the recipes for Rob's salads with all of you after the webinar today. So I'm going to discuss greens, wintertime greens. And so if you've ever had a CSA share, at some point you found yourself saying, oh no, not more beet greens. Even greens from the garden can quickly become overwhelmed as the leaves grow tall. So I'm going to review some of the variety of greens you'll find at farm stands this time of year, and then the best way to transform them into a tasty staple of wintertime meals. In the winter, Maine farmers are using hoop houses or greenhouses to continue their production of leafy greens. These protective structures offer warmer temperatures through solar gains or a heat source and keep greens from freezing during cold winter nights. Your local farm may be selling kale, spinach, bok choy, collards, and mustard greens this time of year. These plants actually grew late last year, and now have gone somewhat dormant as there is so little light over the next few weeks. Farmers harvest leaves of the plant to keep their market tables full, and then the plants will begin growing again in February when the days are a little bit longer. In my mind, greens can be divided into two categories: tender leaf greens that can be eaten fresh or with a light cooking, and heartier greens that shine after roasting, boiling, or stewing. Spinach, arugula, chard, beet greens, radicchio, and kale can all be eaten raw and mixed into salads. Kale also benefits from sauteing, roasting, and boiling in soups. But my favorite way to prepare greens is as a side dish, sauteed in a pan with olive oil, garlic, and crushed red pepper flakes. If you find they aren't tender enough after just the saute, you can add a splash of vegetable or chicken broth, cover the pan, and cook for a few minutes. You may see bagged greens labels as a braising mix at the market this time of year. And this is a mix of greens like kale, chards, mustards, which have a nice spicy flavor like a Chinese mustard, beet greens, and Asian greens like bok choy and tatsoi. And as the name implies, these greens are best braised using that method I just described. And you can serve them with grains, with sausages on top, or with white beans. All are cozy meal options this winter. So greens also tend to lose moisture and turn limp if they're not stored in plastic bags. But they can also rot if there's too much moisture trapped in the bag. So the solution is to wrap them in a damp paper towel and store them in a plastic bag. The towel will help to regulate the moisture. And be sure to wash your farm fresh greens well right before you use them, because they often have more dirt and grit on them than the ones that you might find at the grocery store. But whatever unusual greens you may encounter this winter, we encourage you to pick up a new kind and try it out. Now Lisa's going to take us through different types of alliums, which is the onion family.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Kate. Onions and shallots and garlic and leeks, they're all known as alliums, and they're all available this time of year from Maine farmers. None of them are all that unusual, but they do have different applications in your cooking. They make up the base of our cooking, and they are a kitchen staple. But often, the different flavor they add to your cooking is overlooked. First up, let's talk about onions. Many different types of onions can be grown in Maine, but you'll most commonly see red and yellow onions. They're both great for using in general cooking, adding a sweet and a pungent flavor. Red onions are best used when their color will make a difference, like in guacamole, on burgers, or quick pickled in salad. Shallots are small and purplish with an intense flavor. They can be used in place of onions, but also where an onion might be too harsh, like in salad dressings or in sauces. They can be peeled and roasted whole and with other root vegetables. The Acadians cut the green tops and layer those with salt in clean jars and use this condiment year-round to flavor savory dishes, and it's known as les herbes salées. Some Maine farmers grow an Italian specialty, cipollini onions. These onions are small and slightly flattened with thin, papery skins. They roast very well and quickly become caramelized and sweet. If you see a Maine farmer selling them, we recommend you snap some up because they really are a treat. Leeks are also part of the allium family and are more like big green onions or chives, where you use the top leafy part of the allium. Leeks have a mild onionly flavor, and they can be used as the base for soups, in stock, or braised and served as a side dish. They can trap dirt between their layers, so be sure to give your leeks a good wash before using them. Onions, shallots, and garlic like to be stored in a cool, dark place. If onions are stored in a bright location, they will start to sprout in response to the light, which will cause the rest of the bulb to spoil. Leeks and scallions will store best in the refrigerator. Now it's time to go back to Rob for a demonstration on using another underappreciated winter vegetable, fennel.
All right, well, welcome back to the pilot plant. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys, so I'm happy to be back. So we're gonna play the salad train one more time, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna look at a lovely winter salad that I used to make in a previous job. Prior to moving to Maine, I lived in Vermont, but before that, I was living in Washington, D.C., and I was working at the White House for the Obama family, and I got the opportunity to spend a fair amount of time with Chris Comaford, the executive chef there, and she had a lovely fall or winter salad that she made using fennel. And I really fell in love with fennel, and I came to love it even more and more as I used it in different preparations and in different dishes. And it has a unique anise or licorice-like flavor, and it really is phenomenal eaten raw, cooked, fermented. I just about haven't found a way that I don't like to eat fennel yet, once I got accustomed to it and got used to it. So in this salad, we are going to combine some winter greens that Kate was talking about from earlier, some of those hardier ones that are able to grow in a hoop house at 35 or 40 degrees, along with some other tough winter greens like radicchio, which is in the chicory family, so it's kind of bitter, very tough, very hardy stuff. And then we've got our baby greens here. So we have mizuna, we have cress, we have baby kales, we have baby arugula. And so we're gonna combine our radicchio, our baby greens, pomegranate, which is another thing that's not grown in Maine, but is particularly wonderful this time of year. And I'll show you a really cool trick for taking the pomegranate seeds or kernels out of the pomegranate. We're gonna do a little bit of scallion. We're gonna do some black walnuts, some blue cheese, and we're gonna make a honey vinaigrette. So let's start with our fennel. So for the fennel, again, we're gonna use our mandolin. Now, I should give you a little bit more backstory about fennel. So this came with some long green stalks attached to it and a lot of frilly little bits of kind of green vegetation attached or leaves. I trimmed that part off. The stalks are quite fibrous and fairly tough to eat. You can save that part of it, and you can use it to make a fennel stock or a fennel broth. It's particularly wonderful used in the application of court bouillon or a poaching liquid for fish or seafood. It can also be used in dressings and things like that, but the stalks themselves are a little tough to eat in a raw application like this. So we're going to focus just on the bulb. Now the bulb has layers to it, and it has a tough core. So we're going to start out by splitting this bulb in half. And then you'll be able to see that you've got this little triangular core here at the bottom. Now we're gonna cut that right out because for today's application, we want these pieces to be loose and come apart. Sometimes though, if I'm roasting fennel to be a side for a meat dish or something like that, I might leave that bulb intact and slice off some meat, little pieces like this that I can then layer on a sheet pan and roast. But we'll return to the one that we've removed our bulb from. We're going to use our mandolin again. Wish me luck. I'm not going to put the cut glove on this time, but I'm only going to take a few slices, so I promise I'll make it through this. And what we're looking for is some thin shaved pieces of fennel. Now notice how limp this fennel is right now versus this fennel, which is crispy and stands out straight. And so the difference between those two bits of fennel is with this fennel that I have in the container, I soaked this in ice water, and the ice water made the fennel get incredibly crispy and crunchy. So I highly recommend that, similar to the carrots, you take the time to soak your fennel in a little bit of ice water prior to making your salad, and you'll have a much crispier texture from the fennel, which for me is really kind of the excitement of eating the fennel, is that anise flavor and bright crispy texture. Now, I'm going to show you guys one of my favorite tricks here. We're going to remove the kernels from this pomegranate, and we're going to do it very quickly. It's going to take us maybe 15, 20 seconds. So we have a large bowl, we have a wooden spoon, and this is optional, but when you wear all white, you got to protect yourself somehow. So I'm going to hold this pomegranate in my hand with my palm open and my fingers extended. I'm going to put the towel over this bowl. And then I'm gonna go ahead and take out some of my frustrations from a tough day, right? I'm gonna just beat this pomegranate with this wooden spoon under the towel. And in just a second, you'll see that my pomegranate no longer has any kernels in it. And my bowl is full of usable pomegranate. So pretty much empty. Might be a few stragglers hanging on that we can pick out of there later. But for the most part, what I have now is a bowl of just pomegranate seeds. Now, some of the membrane in between the seeds does come off, but if you you have a couple of options. You can either pick it out by hand, which is my preferred way to do it, or you can add water to this bowl and all of those membranes will rise to the top. The only problem with that is these pomegranate seeds are bathed or coated in pomegranate juice. So if you add that water to it, I find that you lose some of the bright flavor of pomegranate. Just dry my hands off real quick and we will set this aside. That's a pretty cool trick, I have to admit. I'm kind of tickled by that one. So we have all of our ingredients kitted out for this, and we're going to make a really quick honey vinaigrette. Now, earlier I mentioned this was something that Chris Comaford was a big fan of, and it was because the White House had its own beehive. So we had a ton of White House honey, and we were always working it into different things. But one of the things that we love to make with it was this honey vinaigrette. So it's a combination of honey, lemon, Dijon mustard, salt, pepper, and olive oil and grapeseed oil. So in this bowl, I've already got some lemon. I've already got some cider vinegar. I've got about a tablespoon and a half or 2 tablespoons of honey. And then I'm gonna go in with some black pepper. And I'm gonna go in with a nice pinch of salt. And we're gonna whisk that together. So this is the aqueous phase of our emulsion, right? And now we're gonna add in our oil. And again, we're looking to stream this in slowly. And what's going to happen there is we're going to start to suspend that oil throughout this, and we're going to have a creamy, rich vinaigrette. But this is a temporary emulsion. So if you do make this, it will not stay suspended. It will separate back out into its layers. But with a quick mix, you'll be able to bring it right back together. And I use 2 separate oils as a matter of preference. It's not essential to this. You are certainly welcome to use just 1 oil, and if you don't mind the bitter, grassy flavors that you get from olive oil, it's certainly a little bit healthier choice. Yum, that's delicious. All right, so let's pull down a bowl and let's go ahead and put this together. All right, so we've got a large bowl here. We're going to go ahead and put in a handful of radicchio. It's maybe a bit too much. We're going to go ahead and put in a handful of our hoop house greens, right? So our bitter baby greens. We'll go in with about half of this shaved crispy fennel here. And I love the variation in sizes and textures here. And I achieve that by the way that I'm slicing it. If you want smaller bits of fennel, you can certainly slice it a little bit differently and get smaller bits. So to this mixture, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dress this with some vinaigrette. And I am also, for this salad, I'm going to season this just lightly with a little bit of salt and pepper. A lot of people don't think to season salads, but I am here to tell you that salt makes everything taste better. So don't be afraid to give just a little pinch of salt to your salad. You know, I'm not asking you to put so much that you're going to, blow your sodium intake for the day, because you're getting a lot of good stuff in here that's going to help balance that out. So now that we have our greens dressed up, I'm going to slide my salad over just a little bit here. I'm going to take this and we're going to build this right here in the middle of the plate. And we're going to just try to get a little bit of height on it. The radicchio is really nice in that it has a lot of structure, so it really helps build your salads up nice and tall. Now, because this is a dressed salad, this is something that you want to do right before serving, right? So there's our lovely salad. Now I'm going to take some spiced toasted walnuts. I'm going to take some crumbled blue cheese. And I'm going to take our pomegranate kernels that we freed up earlier. Dress that right over. And last but not least, we're going to do a nice little topper of scallions here, just to give us a little bit of that oniony flavor and give us the last little touch of height for our salad. But that is the White House winter salad that I have served for many years, and I've never had a recipe requested more than this one. So all of you that had attended this today will get that recipe. I hope you enjoy, and go buy some local vegetables. So send it from here to Lisa.
Thank you, Rob. And I don't know about anyone else watching this video, but my mind has officially been blown with that pomegranate trick. I am going to go buy a pomegranate when I leave work today and try that out. So we're going to talk about all things CSA. Kate mentioned earlier in this presentation about CSAs, so we're going to talk about that now. So a CSA is a great way to access Maine-grown produce all year long. What is a CSA? CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's a season-long commitment between a consumer and the farmer. A CSA can vary from farm to farm, but essentially CSA members pay for shares at the beginning of a season. These shares can be fresh produce, eggs, dairy, grains, even fresh cut flowers. The funding helps the farmer pay for expenses at the beginning of the growing season. During the season, the farmer harvests the food and CSA members pick up their food on a scheduled basis. Mostly, it's usually on a weekly basis, but it can vary from farm to farm. CSAs are not limited to just summer. CSAs can be available spring, winter, and summer. There is no set formula for a CSA. Different farms have different models for their farm shares. You can connect with your local farm at farmers markets or at farm stands and online. You can also connect with many farmers through social media and online resources. Cooperative Extension's interactive Maine Farm and Seafood Directory is also a great resource for locating farms. The options for ordering, pickup, and payment are wide and varied. There is even a program being sponsored for seniors by the Maine Department of Agriculture. Now is the time of year when most farms are offering signups for their CSAs, so it's a great time to get started investigating what's available. We're going to slip over to Kate now to see if there are any questions.
We do have a few questions. Thanks, Lisa. One is for Rob. Rob, if you're still around, I'm sure he is. Terry wants to know if the salt will wilt the salad greens.
That is correct. Anytime the salt as well as the acid that's in the dressing will wilt the greens. So you do want to serve immediately for any salad that you're going to dress with an acidic dressing or add salt to, but it will not wilt it in the time that you're eating it. So it takes a little while for that salt to kind of pull the moisture out. And what you'll find instead is that it just heightens the flavors, makes everything a little bit sweeter and brighter.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. And Joanne wants some ideas for cooking parsnips. So again, the recommended ways to cook root vegetables are to roast and to mash. I really love a parsnip mash. And frequently the idea of a creamy soup comes up. So there's like a cream of parsnip, like puree, make it nice and smooth. You can add some rich, decadent cream if you want. And another thing I saw in my research was to make like a potato latke. So to shred these vegetables and then put them together with like a binder of egg and flour and fry them like in little potato pancakes. So that's a kind of a winter vegetable fritter idea that might mix it up, because the parsnips tend to languish in my crisper drawer because I get kind of sick of just roasting them. But it is nice to have ideas to mix it up. And I do want to point out, while this graphic with all the collage of the different vegetables we covered, the top left is the kohlrabi. I feel bad that I couldn't find one locally to hold up. So that top left was ones that my boss Kathy had found in Bodenham at her local farm stand. So again, they are available at farm stands, just not at the markets that I went to. Okay, we have another question from Angie. She wants to know what the inside of a cut celeriac looks like. I tried to cook with it for the first time the other day and half of it had weird looking brown stripes through the middle that looked sort of rotten, and the other half was pure beige. The dark colored side worried me, so I didn't end up using it. Yeah, that would worry me too. And I agree, I have seen kind of some variation inside celeriac as well. I have one here, so we can cut it open and see what it looks like on the inside. So typically celeriac has this like round bulb, but it does have these like almost little shoots that come off it. So when you cut it open, you'll find that there is pockets on the inside that still are kind of gnarled looking like they're part of the outside. I don't know if that makes much sense. This one is very uniform looking. And our knives in the kitchen are so not very sharp, unlike Rob's. So I'm sure his are sharp, but I made it through this celeriac. And this, yeah, it does have some variation on the inside that I don't see anything that looks concerning. But you can see how on the edges there are places where kind of the outside looks like it's coming into the center of the flesh. And so you could trim that away if you wanted. So it's up to you, of course, with your tolerance as to what kind of food you want to eat. You eat with your eyes first, but there will be some dark variation inside the celeriac that is normal. All right, a few more questions. What kind of combos of these vegetables are best, and what do you recommend for red cabbage? Great. So what kind of combination of vegetables are best? So I see potato recommended with a lot of things. So of course, potato has a very neutral flavor that you can then use to offset any of the stronger flavors of a rutabaga or a turnip, sweeter flavor of a parsnip. So if you're concerned at all that you might not like some of these flavors, or you just want to dip your toe in the shallow end, do a mix with potatoes as a mash. But really, there is no limit to what goes well together. So certainly mix them together and experiment. All right, I think we have time for, we'll try and get to 2 of these. What do we recommend for red cabbage? So again, Kathy has a great recipe for a stewed red cabbage. So you thinly slice it. I want to say you cook it with apples and thyme and cider vinegar. And cover it in liquid so that the cabbage becomes nice and soft. So kind of like a braised cabbage. If you're sick of braises and stews and roasts and mash, you can always go the direction like Rob and mandolin it and use it in your fresh salads. Angie says, thanks for cutting up the celeriac. Hers didn't look anything like that. So yeah, maybe yours was bad. I typically think of them as having like a bright white flesh with some variation inside. And Angie's also encountering bitter chard. I don't know that I have tips for bitter chard. Lisa or Rob, do you guys have any advice for avoiding bitterness in cooked greens?
So I'll jump in and say that in chard, some of that bitterness can be mitigated by doing a blanching step. So you can heat up a large pot of boiling salted water. You can submerge the chard for 30 seconds to a minute roughly, take it out, shock it in ice water, and then squeeze all of that residual moisture out of it to get it nice and dry, and then proceed with a saute or a braise. I have a lovely recipe for braised greens where you put a little bit of ginger and garlic in the pot with a little bit of coconut oil, add in your greens, add in a little bit of coconut milk, and let it braise in that sweet coconut milk. And I bet that would be a great solution to dealing with your slightly bitter chard. If you Google coconut braised greens, I think it might have been a Bon Appetit recipe that originally pointed me in that direction. So worth a shot if you don't like the bitter.
Super. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Kate, for taking all those questions and providing those great answers. We do have some information on our recommended resources that we'll be sharing with you. You'll get all of these resources included in the follow-up email, including our directory of Maine farm products, so you can shop locally. We'll be back in 2 weeks on January 26th to demonstrate making savory harvest pies. Other topics for our series will include cooking with an electric pressure cooker, sometimes called Instant Pots, and reducing food waste in your kitchen. We'll be sure to share resources and recipes from today's topic and registration for our next webinar via email. We want to thank you all for joining us today, and we hope you are staying happy and healthy in this new year. Thank you, everyone. Bye now.